Hey, everybody in the health insurance industry, Andy Neary here. I'm kicking off a really important interview. With me, I've got the founders of Carepath Benefits. I have Mike Rollmeyer, David Duncan, and Stephanie Williams. They co-founded Carepath not all that long ago. And for transparency's sake, I wanted to interview them because they're a client of ours at Complete Game Consulting. We're helping them build their brand recognition in the industry as they kick off a new level funded plan. But the purpose of this interview today is extremely important because if you were to go look up all three of them on LinkedIn and you're going to look at their profiles, you're going to see a common bond. And that is they all worked at Medova Health. And if you've been in the industry long enough, you've had clients who are with Medova Health, you know what happened not all that long ago. So we wanted to take this interview, this video, and share with you exactly what happened and what they have done to create a completely different level funded plan with the right principles. And that's why I wanted to do this interview. So I'm just going to get right to it. Mike, Dave, Stephanie, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
I'm just going to go right to the elephant in the room, and I'm going to address this to you, David. There's probably a lot of brokers out there who want to know what the heck happened at Medova.
All right. Well, thanks, Andy, for having us. We really appreciate you being willing to take on this subject, which has been a difficult one for probably many of the people who are watching this video, as well as it has been for us. We actually like talking about Medova. We're not ashamed of our involvement there, and we are happy to tell the story to anyone who asks. And so we thought now would be an appropriate time to talk about it, because it is, in many cases, an elephant in the room for a lot of our relationships. So when we begin any relationship, we start with the fact that we all work for Medova. Stephanie actually started Medova in 2015, and then Mike and I started 2 weeks apart in 2019, in the spring of 2019, which ironically, or I suppose it's a good thing, because that was after all of the allegations against me had taken place. We're not here today to make excuses for anything, but we do want to give you our perspective and vantage point. So I'm going to quickly go through a timeline of how we understand it, what happened at Medova. We're not going to get into any details, any of the nitty gritty. If anybody has any specific questions, or feel free to reach out to us anytime, and we're happy to answer them. But we have been known in the industry, Carepath Benefits, as Medova 2.0. And that's a term that stuck with a lot of the brokers in the industry, and really anybody out there who knows the Medova story and that knows that we started Carepath. We understand there are a lot of rumors out there. We live in an age of misinformation, and so the internet says all sorts of crazy things, and we understand that. And so I guess today's our chance during this video, not to necessarily set the record straight, but to just, like I said, tell our story from where we sat. And so if you don't know, Medova was a TPA, a third-party administrator for group health insurance. They offered a self-funded plan under the title Lifestyle Health Plans. That was a really successful product that Medova administered. And Medova only administered that product. I and Mike and Stephanie both, like I said, all worked kind of in upper management positions. But as far as the timeline goes, our understanding is that in 2017, the Department of Labor began looking into Medova because they thought Medova was operating what's called a MEWA. And if you know anything about a MEWA, they're absolutely legal. But the accusation was that Medova was operating one without actually filing the appropriate paperwork. And that began in 2017. Then in 2020, in December of 2020, a federal complaint was actually filed against Medova by the Department of Labor, saying just that, yes, Medova seems to be operating a MEWA. We've got claims that aren't being paid in a timely manner. And so in December of 2020, that's really when all of the staff at Medova, about 170 employees, including the three of us, found out that there might be something wrong. We really weren't aware of any of the audit, if you will, before then. But in December 2020, it got out of the bag. And so that kind of got the ball rolling. 2021, Medova agreed to have an independent fiduciary come basically take a look at what we were doing. So this is independent fiduciary, independent of the Department of Labor and independent of Medova. He brought his team in March of 2021, and began digging into all the happenings at Medova. And if you know anything about the Medova story, that's where the wheels fell off. And again, we're not making any excuses today by any means, but to say that the fiduciary was a bull in a china closet would be a large understatement. Basically, at that point, we were unable to pay claims. We were unable to do any of our normal processes. We were unable to pay brokers their commissions. If you're a broker out there that's on this, you know that very well. And that was a very rough patch from March of 2021 to the summer of 2021, when ultimately the independent fiduciary fired Medova as the TPA for all of our groups and moved most of them to a different TPA. And that was as of July 1st, 2021. And soon thereafter, Medova laid off all of its employees. There were actually several rounds of layoffs in there, but at the end of August, finally, everybody had exited from Medova, and Medova had essentially closed. So Mike and I actually decided that Medova had a really good product that we could make even better. And so we started Carepath Benefits on our own in the summer of 2021. We launched Carepath Benefits. Before we did it, we hired Medova's best employee, Stephanie, best and smartest and versed in the healthcare industry, to help us. So that's how Carepath began. We feel like we've got a product that's better than a lifestyle product, but we are different than Medova completely, and Mike will kind of get into that. So that's the high level timeline of how everything went down.
Well, that's a great overview, Dave. You know, Mike, to Dave's point, I think a lot of advisors might see this and go, oh, okay, so we got 3 former employees from Medova who have built a level funded plan. This is just going to be Medova 2.0, as you referenced, Dave. But at the same time, what you said, Dave, was the plan itself was a really good plan. And you guys wanted to take that perspective, that principle, but build something better, build something the right way. So Mike, let's start. Why, when people do believe you guys are just 2.0 of Medova, why is that not true?
For a litany of reasons, Andy, but you're right in that we saw the product, lifestyle product, as a great product being offered to small groups that didn't have many options. Right. There was obviously some issues within that, but we've taken that, we've made it better. We built on it and made it better to offer out there in the industry. But difference wise, first off and foremost, we're not a TPA. We are just the product. We've created the product. We work with carriers to get the product rated. We work with a great TPA out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, Edison Health Solutions. So they help us do everything that a TPA does, right? They bill clients, they collect money and premium, they process claims, they get out ID cards, they do everything that a TPA should do. So we're not a TPA, much like Medova was.
And to add on to that, our biggest, I guess, driving point that we have is that we fully believe in transparency from start to finish. We work with the groups to educate, starting at the broker level, to make sure that they fully know that this plan is a self-funded, level-funded plan. Then we take that and we make sure that the group is aware of it also, as well as what they're purchasing for their benefits. And then even at the member level, we provide further education for them, how to use their benefits, how their benefits are applied, and make sure that they fully understand how they work. And then for brokers and the employers, we are able to provide reporting for them for monthly, weekly if we need to. We're tracking their premiums that are being processed. We're tracking claims payments. We're making sure that everything is following how it should to make sure their claims are being paid and make sure that things are being processed correctly. We'll do our own internal audits if we need to just to make sure that everything is how it should be. And the TPA is in full agreement with that on us. They give us anything that we ask for. They are helping to make sure that transparency is there as well.
And I would add actually another big difference between us and Medova is that we don't underwrite. Medova actually had a whole underwriting team that would work with the carrier to evaluate groups and such. And all we do is take a health app, pass it on to the carrier. The carrier then underwrites the group and either declines the group or sends us what those rates are going to be. And so much like Mike said, we don't touch the money. We don't handle any money. We're not a TPA. We leave all that to the other partners of ours.
Yeah, that's a great point. When I think of what you guys have built, essentially what you are is you're not a TPA, nor are you a stop loss carrier or PBM. You have just brought in the best of what you believe puts together the components of a level funded plan, and you have brought the right players in that to create that type of program. Let's talk about ownership, because I think another common misconception may be like, okay, we got 3 people who came from Medova. I'm a bit skeptical about ownership in Carepath. Is there still involvement? Mike, why don't you talk quickly about the ownership of Carepath? Who are the owners, who's involved? And so we can let people know exactly the faces behind the Carepath plan.
Sure. From day one, as David said, in the summer of 2021, David, myself, and another GA that was associated with, worked with Medova. We had a relationship with him through that. All 3 got together, created Carepath, and we needed that GA, or thought we needed that GA, to help with our growth strategy, right? They had relationships out there. We thought that would help significantly. But since we've parted ways, the GA has left the picture, and it is just David and I, 50-50 ownership of Carepath Benefits.
Yeah, and I'll just be extra clear on that and say Medova never has, never will invest in Carepath Benefits. There is no funding that has come from Medova or its owners. So just want to be crystal clear on that. 2 owners, you're looking at them right here. Always been that way, with the exception of the GA we had in the beginning that has since moved on.
Mike, going back to you for a second, along the lines of the leadership of Carepath, there are people who might know that you and David were in leadership positions within Medova. So there's always that inherent belief that if you were in a leadership position, you had to know what's going on. Mike, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Sure. So David and I think the presumption can be made, right? David and I both had titles of leadership. David was the director of finance. I was the director of member services and claims. Certainly with that title has to come some knowledge of what was going on. But back to David's point, to the timeline, we found out at the same time as everyone else in December, the week of Christmas, in December of 2020, when the federal DOL filing came out. We all stood there with our jaws on the floor going, what's going on? So I think anybody who's dealt with Medova as well knows, or at least should be aware of the hierarchy that was within Medova. Every decision, for the most part, came from the top. So there was not a lot of autonomy within roles, whether your title was director or assistant or manager, there really wasn't that much autonomy. So with that, there was a department within Medova that was strictly for underwriting, set the premium rates. There are a litany of reasons, theories out there that things didn't get paid correctly or things weren't paid timely because there's a lot of outstanding claims. David was in charge of finance. I was in charge of claims. Never in question was how the claim was processed. So claims processed within the percentage of accuracy, 98% within the normal accuracy percentage of the industry. When those claims processed, they were presented to the finance department. If the finance department had funds in the account, those claims were paid. Again, back to the litany of reasons there might not have been funds in those accounts to be paid, but one of them being underwriting may be incorrect. Who knows what, there's 1,000 reasons that are out there floating around, still being investigated right now as to why that is the case. But David and I didn't work in the underwriting department. When claims came through, they got processed. When they got processed, they got given to finance. And when there was funds, finance released the funds. So I guess to make the presumption that David and I had anything more to do with than our own departments would be incorrect.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, we live in a society today that there is definitely a lot of guilt by association, right? And because somebody was involved, even if they were just an employee, where something, let's just call it bad, happened, often people are quickly to judge and call you guilty by association. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're doing this today, is just to, truth be told, be transparent and set the record straight, because reputation is everything. And sometimes reputation, not just your reputation, but again, associations you've had can accurately or inaccurately stain your reputation. And I think everybody needs that chance to tell people and show people who they really are. And I'll tell you guys up front, as the organization at Complete Game Consulting that's had a chance to work with you guys, reputations are quickly made by the actions you take. And I think you guys are taking all the right actions and surrounding yourself with people that are proving that your actions will back up the reputation you're trying to establish, because you guys are doing all the right things. Stephanie, I want to ask you a question. There might be a broker watching this. Okay. You guys have shared the story. Great. I'm still skeptical here. You haven't really proven to me that I should be trustworthy of sending you business opportunities because, again, I know you told me you're not Medova 2.0, but man, you guys have a big tie to that. What would your answer be to somebody who's still sitting out there and still skeptical of whether or not they should do business with you guys and be offering your programs to their small clients?
There's some brokers, we're just not going to change their opinion, and that's okay. We totally get it. We've ridden through the entire thing. We've heard the good, the bad, the ugly, and we want to build that trust. And if you feel like you can't trust us, then it's probably not the right relationship for us. However, if it's more of not quite sure, maybe not, pick up the phone, call us, send us an email. We are more than happy to go to a deeper level with this, to provide you that need that you have to fully understand and feel comfortable with sending us your business and your groups. The biggest thing is talk to us. We can't squash the rumors or let you experience our product and have confidence in it if we don't have that conversation when you're worrying about it.
And I'll say it one more time. Reputation is made by the actions you take, and knowing what you guys have done recently with your partnership with Edison Health Solutions, your partnership with Edison Health at large, you guys have built a really unique program that I believe the small group market hasn't had access to before. And so I'll finish this by saying, if you're an advisor, you've got a chance to watch this. First, thank you for taking the time to watch this. We wanted to use this as a platform to let David, Steph, and Mike to share their story, because everybody has a story and that's what we help people do. But at the same time, if you have small groups that are sick and tired of the 15 and 20% increases they're getting every year because they feel there's nothing else they can do, and you believe there might not be anything else you can do for them, give these guys a shot. They've got a very unique, very effective level funded program built for the small group markets. Mike, Dave, Steph, thank you for taking the time. And if anybody else, again, if you're listening in, you want to get a hold of these guys, reach out, find them on LinkedIn. This is the time. You're delivering your January renewals right now. So this is the time to look for something different and give your clients a different result they deserve. Thank you.